What's going on, Godzirra Nation? This is Arghgodzirra. Welcome back to another installment of Arghgodzirra'S footy tipping competition. We are looking ahead to AFL 2019 Round 8 action. Thank you for joining me as always. Still working on that Google document. It'll drop in the description of this video either over the weekend or we'll be ready to go next round. Been trying to put everybody's tips together and make sure I've got everything correct because I don't want to be ripping anybody off. There's some people that have missed a week or two, so I'm trying to equate for that as well. However, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier for myself to keep up to date with who is where, as well as being able to give you guys the opportunity to track along as we go for the rest of the season. However, let's not dwell on the week that was, and let's talk about the week that will be. Round 8 kicks off with Sydney versus Essendon at the SCG. And there's some big ins for Essendon this week. Orazio Fantasia comes back in, Zach Clark comes back in, but Joe Danaher, Langford, Ridley, Bagley, they've all been dropped from the team. I was going to give Essendon half a chance, but I feel with Danaher out, and he's been firing, Bagley's been doing a lot of damage around the ground. Jordan Ridley has been very impressive in the back half. I don't know which way this game's going to go. Sydney without Franklin as well. He would have been a big chance to kick a huge bag this week had he have been named in the team. Who am I going to go here? I'm going to go with Sydney. I know a lot of people will probably go Essendon here, and Essendon are probably going to come out tomorrow night, absolutely romp the Swans now that I've gone and backed against them. But I think Sydney showed a fair bit against Brisbane last week. They had Brisbane on their toes for a long part of that game. I think at the SCG, Sydney, with their pressure, they can hold Essendon here. They don't have that much of a damaging forward line this week, Essendon, and I think with no Joey Danaher in the forward line, the likes of Lloyd, Rampy, they're going to get their hands on the ball quite easily in defence. And I think, I'm still 50-50 on this, but I think Sydney are going to get it done. I'm going to lock it in. Let's go Sydney for Friday night. Saturday afternoon kicks off at Mars Stadium with the Bulldogs hosting the Brisbane Lions. Fullback Harris Andrews comes back in for the Lions. Matthew Suckling comes in for the Bulldogs. Having seen the Bulldogs play live last week against Richmond, absolutely broke my heart to see Richmond play that type of football, let me tell you what. But the way the Bulldogs move the ball, if they can do that against Brisbane, they are going to chop Brisbane up. Right here, I have to back the Bulldogs. On the basis of what I saw last week, I have to back the Bulldogs here quite comfortably. Players like Bontempelli, McRae, Caleb Daniel, Josh Dunkley, they were just getting an absolutely incredible amount of the ball. And Brisbane, to my knowledge, don't have a run-with player that can go with any of those players. So I think, as much as this game could potentially be an arm wrestle, I've got the Bulldogs coming out on top. We head on over to the MCG later on that afternoon. Carlton hosting Collingwood. Matthew Cruiser, Will Setterfield, Mitch McGovern, all in for Carlton. Some big inclusions there. The big story, Dane Beams and Taylor Adams both out of the Collingwood midfield. Chris Mayne comes back in, Rupert Wills comes in as well. What happened to Carlton last week I did not see coming. I actually tipped Carlton to beat North Melbourne last week and it was just downhill from the beginning. I don't understand what the hell happened. If Carlton rock up this week against Collingwood with the same mindset they did when they beat the Bulldogs, when they challenged Hawthorn, they could take Collingwood for a ride. However, going off of what we've seen so far from both teams, I have to comfortably back Collingwood here. I know, as I say every week, I've got a lot of Carlton supporter fans on this channel, but I think this week Collingwood are going to get the job done. If Carlton can be competitive, I think that's a big improvement from last week, and they're going to look to respond. But I think Collingwood, even with Beams and Adams out of the lineup, I think they're way too strong. Collingwood for me, Saturday afternoon. We head on over to Metricon Stadium. Gold Coast Suns hosting Melbourne. Jack Viney comes in for Melbourne. Hanley, Weller, Lemons and Lukosius all come in for the Suns. Braden Fiorini is out, and he's been arguably Gold Coast's best player all season in my opinion. I am backing Melbourne to win this game, but the Gold Coast Suns have potential for a huge upset here. Last week against Hawthorn, Melbourne just kept coming and coming and coming, and they did not let up, and they deserved that win. They honestly did. The Gold Coast this year, they've been proving that they can keep up with the best of them. They challenged West Coast last week to the point where they got within a couple of kicks. A lot of people would have thought 50 plus points that the margin would have been. I definitely thought that was going to be the case. I definitely said that last week as well. This week, however, Melbourne's got a little bit of momentum going. They're looking to get their season back on track. I think they comfortably get it done at Metricon against the Gold Coast. Saturday night kicks off with the Adelaide Showdown. Port Adelaide versus Adelaide. And there are some big outs for this game as well. Port Adelaide without Wines, without Ebert, without Bonner. But they bring in Matthew Broadbent, who's been on the out for a very long time. Stephen Motlop comes in. Kane Farrell and Aiden Johnson as well. Bryce Gibbs out for Adelaide. Luke Brown comes in. I am going to tip Port Adelaide. And going into this showdown, I am going to assume that Adelaide would have been going in as heavy favourites here. But I feel they've been doing a lot, Port Adelaide, without much influence from Ollie Wines. Brad Ebert up forward, okay, he's been a genuine star up forward, but I think with Stephen Motlop coming in, he can fill that Brad Ebert role. I just feel Port Adelaide have had the better run this year. Adelaide took a very long time to get it rolling against Fremantle last week in a game where everybody would have thought Adelaide would have just romped it in from the beginning. And with Bryce Gibbs out of that defence, that's a huge out. That is a very big out. Adelaide could quite possibly get it done. This is probably one of the only 50-50 games I see coming into this weekend. But I think Port Adelaide, Saturday night, gets the showdown under their belt. Saturday night rounds out at Marvel Stadium with St Kilda hosting West Coast Eagles. Nathan Brown, Luke Dunstan, Ed Phillips in for St Kilda. Jake Waterman comes in for Chris Maston at the Eagles. And I'm going to back the Eagles here. The Eagles had a very good win against the Gold Coast last week. Took them a little while to get firing, but they managed to get the job done. I think they come down here and they get the job done against St Kilda. However, in saying that, we all know West Coast don't travel all that well. St Kilda have been playing very good football this year and have every chance of knocking West Coast off here. I am giving them every single chance in the book to get the job done. However, I think when push comes to shove, you've got to back the West Coast Eagles to continue their run here. Sunday afternoon kicks off at Marvel Stadium as well. North Melbourne hosting Geelong. We've got extended benches named. Joel Selwood named to come back in for the Geelong Cats. Patrick Dangerfield still 50-50 on whether he will play or not, so that's a big story. Stay tuned for the AFL updates on the AFL website if you are keen to see whether or not he gets up. I'm still going to back Geelong even if they don't have Patrick Dangerfield play, because I think this year Geelong have proven they're arguably the best team in the competition right now. Joel Selwood coming back in, that adds a lot. Zach Tui is named to come back in, running off of the halfback flank here. He'll add a booming kick, nice overhead mark. Young Charlie Constable named for a possible return as well. Keep an eye on the Cats this year. They're finally starting to click. They're finally getting return out of names like Dangerfield, Selwood, Ablett, all working together. And I'm going to tip them to win quite comfortably this weekend in what I'm naming the Battle of the Scots, because we all know the Twins are going head-to-head in the coach's box there. But Geelong for me, Sunday afternoon. We then fly over to Optus Stadium, where Fremantle are hosting Richmond. And Richmond have named a couple of possible debutants in Jake Arts and Riley Collier-Dawkins. I'm actually excited to see whether either of those guys do get up and play, because both of them have been rather impressive at VFL level. Daniel Rioli out, Nick Vlosten out. The good news is, though, Richmond fans, David Asprey has been named to come back in, so he'll slot straight in for Nick Vlosten. In Daniel Rioli's role, I could see someone like Dan Butler or Jake Arts coming in, but as I said, it'd be good to see either Arts or Collier Dawkins get the nod. It's time Richmond started investing in these young kids. We've seen Sydney Stack come through, absolute champion. We've seen Jack Ross come in, absolute champion. We've seen Noah Bolter. He's shown glimpses, but he's still got a fair way to go. But I'm excited that Richmond are still backing the young kids to come in. Fremantle, on the other hand, they've also named rookie Brett Bewley to possibly debut this weekend as well, which would be good for them because he was actually highly touted coming into this season. I am going to back Richmond. A lot of people will probably pick Fremantle here going off of what we saw on the weekend from Richmond. But as we know, and we have seen this year, when Richmond drop the ball one week, they come out firing the next. And I think this week we turn it around. Fremantle, however, and I'm calling it now, Richmond didn't have anybody worry about the midfield from Bulldogs last week. They went absolutely bananas. If we don't put down a clamp-on roll with Fife, I'm predicting he's going to get off the chain 35-plus possessions, kick 2 goals. He could probably get best on ground. But I'm still confident in Richmond bouncing back here. Especially excited with some of these names that are named to come in. Hopefully we get the job done against Fremantle. And to round out round 8, we have Hawthorn hosting GWS at the MCG. Jared Roughhead, Chad Wingard, both out for Hawthorn. 2 big outs. For GWS, they have omitted Jackson Haitley. I seriously can't believe it. He is playing very well and they've got rid of him. Shane Mumford out as well. Big out for GWS. They have, however, got Dawson Simpson coming in to fill that role for Shane Mumford. Going into this game, regardless of the ins and outs, I was going to go with GWS anyway, and I'm still going to confidently back GWS here. The big news is Lockie Whitfield's still not named to come back in, so keep an eye on that, GWS fans. I'm hoping he comes back, so I've got him on Supercoach, and the bastard just sitting on my bench doing nothing. Anyway, regardless, GWS for me rounds out my tips for round 8. So looking back over it, I'm going with Sydney, Bulldogs, Collingwood, Melbourne, Port Adelaide, West Coast Eagles, Geelong, Richmond, and GWS. Be sure, if you have been following this tipping competition, to get your votes, your tips, whatever you want to call them, in the comment section down below. Hopefully, I can get this document up and going, so by next round, you guys are able to keep up. Thank you for joining me as always, guys. Please do me a favour, and if you have been enjoying this little mini-series along with myself, leave a like on the video. It goes a long way to supporting the channel. Cannot thank you guys enough for that. If you're new to the channel and you're looking for some gameplays, there is plenty to go check out. I urge you to do so. And if you do enjoy what I'm throwing down, get on board the Godzirra Nation by hitting subscribe. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.